drawing your own character art ethically, because, you know, AI is real bad, okay? So this is just a quick and dirty way to draw your own customized art using ethical assets and simple things that anyone can do with just a little bit of practice. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do here. I drew this using 2 stock photos that I purchased. They're $1 each over at Deposit Photos. You can get them from a lot of places. You can also get resources like free posable 3D figures from sketchme, or figures from DAZ Studio that you can model yourself and pose yourself. All sorts of things, you know, just anything except for screenshotting Google images and Pinterest images or using AI. Anything you can use legally, we're going to trace it. The program that I used is called Procreate, but there are lots of other drawing apps that you can do this in no problem. We are going to start by picking one single brush. It really doesn't matter what the brush is, but you just want something that's solid, and if you press harder it gets thicker, kind of like this thing that I have here. I've used Studio Pen, and I like to go into it and add a little more stabilization. And again, if you're not using Procreate, just Google how to mess with your brushes in whatever app you're using, or pick a different brush that you like. It really does not matter. So I am going to use this regular ink pen that has this Studio Pen that has extra stabilization, so that I can draw smooth lines that go thick and thin. This is the only brush I'm going to use for this entire tutorial. Okay, and now I'm going to show you the layers that I'm going to use. The first layers are going to be my stock photos that I bought. I only picked 2 just to make this as simple as possible, a girl and her antlers. And then after we have our stock photos arranged, we're going to trace over them to get our starting sketch. And then a new layer above that will have our line art, which, as you can see, looks much prettier. And underneath the line art, we'll have our color fill. As you can see, that's on its own layer. And above the color fill will be our highlights and shadows. See, there's our highlights and shadows. And I'll show you how to do each and every step one at a time, so that this should be pretty easy to do. It's just a little bit of practice. So that's all the layers we're going to make, okay? We're going to have our stock photos, then above that is our tracing, and then our color, our highlights and shadows, and our line art. So step 1 is going to be import our stock photos. And like I said, I purchased these at Deposit Photos for $1 each. These are mine to do whatever I like with. We can trace over them. It's completely legal and ethical. This is great. So I'm going to pull in this deer skull, and I'm going to first start by removing the background, just so it's easier for me to see what I'm doing. And then I'm also going to erase the skull part, because I don't need that part. All I want is the antlers. And then I'll take that and move it, adjust it, resize it until it's sitting where I want it to sit, roughly on her head. And then this part is optional, but I wanted the tines to be pointing forward, so I used the liquify tool. Do whatever you feel is comfortable. Like, there are no rules here. Okay, so now that I have the stock photos where I want them, it's going to be time to start tracing them. So I'm going to make a new layer on top of them. I'm going to lower the opacity of the stock photos just so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go to the new layer above that. Just go to a black, plain black. That's all we need. I'm going to use that brush that I showed you earlier. It's a stabilized Studio pen, but any pen will work just fine. You just want kind of a solid layer. Really, anything that you like. It does not matter. The only thing is that if you add stabilization, or if it comes with stabilization, it will be easier to use. It'll give you smoother lines. It'll do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So all we're going to do is we are going to trace the major shapes of this stock photo. Keep lines simple. Don't try to get too fussy about this. Just block it in. This should go pretty smoothly. Just trace everything. And the more you do this, the easier it gets, just because you'll recognize what needs traced and what a good eye shape is to emphasize or whatever. But honestly, just turn on a show and get to tracing. This should be easy and mindless. I'll speed it up here in a second to get through all of it. Some places you may have to make educated guesses, like what exactly the shape of her thumb is, but okay, when it comes to hair, we do not want to trace individual strands of hair. That is insane. We want to find clumps of hair and trace that. I don't know why I thought picking a girl with such insane hair would be a good idea, but here we are. So just find clumps of hair, find individual curls, trace those. We do not want to get precious about this. We do not need to draw every curl. We don't need to draw, we just need to hint at it, really, to show the outlines of it and the general shape of it. We are going to make this look prettier in a second. Just try to get the general shapes down. Get the big clumps of hair that you have like this. This kind of shows that her hair is pulled back. And just, again, take your time. Get the most of it. Now here we're going to have to use a little bit of logic because these antlers are not a part of the girl's stock photo. So where they join together, we're going to have to use a little bit of logic, such as how the bottom of the antlers will be buried in hair, so it'll be easier to hide. And the back antler is coming out of the other side of her head, so we will see less of it. The hair will be sitting in front of it. So just use a little bit of logic when joining together where two stock photos meet. It should be simple. Keep this simple. Now, as I finish up this step and give her a lower half, after this, I'm going to hide the stock photos. There is a ton of information in this stock photos that is just going to confuse us. So we want just our basic sketch that doesn't look so great right now, but we're going to fix it. Okay, so we add a new layer above this and we're going to start our line art. And this is where we want to pay attention to thicker and thinner lines. Anywhere that there's a curve, or anything that you want to have that is drawing more attention, make that line thicker. You want a good mix of thick and thin lines. That's how you're going to create kind of a dynamic image here, something that draws the eye to certain places. So anything with a curve or any part of the drawing that you want to draw attention to, thicker lines. Again, if you have a nice stabilized pen, a nice stabilized brush, this will be easier. So just go nice and slow and try to have fun with it. Again, this is on a new layer. This is a different layer than our sketch layer before because this is the clean layer. This is going to be the pretty one, and we don't want to see our messy sketch from before. And remember, don't try to draw every curl. We just kind of want to hint at the idea that there are curls here. So just follow the rough shape you made before, make a few locks, the general clumps of hair, and it's going to look a lot better than you expect. Remember to keep shapes simple. You don't have to try and get a ton of detail in something like an eye because the viewer will interpret it as eye with very little information here. And the more you do this, the better you'll get at knowing what lines need to be thicker and what lines don't. And remember, it comes down to what you want people to see more, what you want to have more attention drawn to. So like the nostril, the back curve of the nose should not be very thick because that's not really important. But the general shape of the nose can be quite thicker because, you know, that's the profile. It's an important thing. And this just comes with a little practice. This will take practice. It's not going to happen instantly, so be patient with yourselves and try to have fun with it at the end of the day. I cannot draw people. Even in my digital art stuff, I use DAZ figures and paint directly over them. I cannot do anatomy. So this is something anyone can do if you're just patient and detail oriented. I'm adding a little belt here just just to show that you can add some customization in clothes or anything else that you think you can mess with. A little goes a long way and stuff like this. But you can, I'm just doing a quick and simple belt to show that you can change things. And also, of course, I gave her a dress so she wouldn't be naked like she was in the stock photo. And then after we finish with this step, we are going to erase, we're going to hide again the sketch layer, because again, that's going to have information on it that we don't need. It's going to confuse you. So once we're done with this part, hold on, we'll get there in a second. Okay, we're going to hide the sketch layer. Once that's gone, it's easier to see what is actually there in our line art section. So I can see my curls were kind of conflicting here. So I'm going to adjust that a little bit. And then here on the bottom, I left an entire section missing. So I'm just going to fill that in really quickly. And now I'm going to go back and look at any parts that I think need a little more weight. For example, the antlers are a major point of interest for this character. It makes her more interesting than just human. So I want them to have a little more weight. So I'm going back now and I'm adding thicker lines on them just to make them stand out a little bit better. And then I went back and looked at the stock photo of the antlers and I saw that they had a little bit of ridge texture. So I'm just adding a small amount of detail here just to add a little bit of interest. Okay, then I'm looking again and I think her backside is weirdly shaped, so I'm going to mess with that just for a minute. Using the erase tool and that same studio pen that I've been using this whole time. And then I decided her hands need a little bit more weight to them because hands they're nice to look at. They're a good focal point. Okay, and I think we're there. It's time to add some color. So I'm going to add a new layer underneath our line art layer, and you can pick colors manually if you like, or you can cheat by adding another stock photo that has lots of nice colors in it and just pick your color straight from there. That's what I did here. Because there's a lot of theory about color palettes and which colors and how many colors to use, and that's a lot of stuff that it takes study. So you can just cheat, get a stock photo that has all the colors already, a stock photo that you think is pretty, and pick colors straight from that. So all we're going to do is in the layer underneath your line art, we're going to fill in solid colors. And because you're in the layer underneath, it's really easy to color within the lines because the line art will cover up any tiny mistakes you make here. I just grabbed that blue color from the blonde lady's dress so she can have clothes. And then I thought, let's have a green belt, but then that looked awful. So instead I grabbed a beigey color from the blonde woman's hair. And I thought that looked better. And then for hair, even though the woman has very, very dark hair, you want to have medium, kind of not quite so dark colors for your base colors. And I'll show you why here in a second. So what I did was I grabbed the lightest color in her hair I could find and then even lightened it up a little bit more. And again, this is just like a coloring book. Fill it in, use the color fill tool. And then we'll grab some other colors to add details like eye color. I used the belt color to do her sclera, maybe a little bit lighter because I thought that was a bit too dark. So a little lighter there. I grabbed a little lip color. And as you get better with this, you can use the airbrush tool and airbrush on a little blush or anything else. Play with makeup, stuff like that. But I'm just keeping it simple here. And then for her horns, her antlers, I thought, let's have some fun red antlers, but that looked awful. So I grabbed that same beigey color from her belt, and I thought that looked better. Again, just solid colors. We don't need to get this complicated. Keep it simple. And there you have it. It's fully colored in. We're ready to move on to the next step. So in another layer above our colors, in between the color and the line art, we're going to have a new layer, and we're going to set it to overlay mode. Whatever programming you're using, it should have an overlay mode. If not, play with the layer modes, see what they do. I'm going to pick a gray color. You don't want any color at all, just black and white. I'm going to pick a medium dark gray, and it does something really cool. When it's in overlay mode, same pen as before, same brush as before. When it's in overlay mode, this gray color will simply make whatever color underneath it darker. And that's how we're going to be able to add shadows to all of this stuff without having to pick a new color every time. We're just going to use this same gray color, using the same brush as before, on an overlay layer. And that way, no matter if you're drawing on hair or on skin or on clothes, it's just going to make it darker. It's going to automatically pick a darker color for you. And again, we want to just don't be too precious about this. We're going to add hints of shadows. And while you're doing this, you kind of want to pick where your light source is coming from and think about it logically like that. So in this case, I decided the light was coming from above and in front of her. So all of the shadows I'm putting on the back sides of the clumps of hair and on the back sides of her fingers and the back of her dress and things like that, just so that it will feel right to your eye. And again, I'm still using the same gray color on that same overlay layer and adding some shadows to the back of the antlers. Same pen, same color, same overlay layer. Adding shadows to her skin now, just to kind of give the effect that it's a 3D object. And I played around here a little bit with opacity. You know, you should mess with the settings. Once you get comfortable, mess with the settings, see what they all do. It can be fun to explore and play around. Got to put shadows under everything, including her arms, and in between her fingers, all of it. And her belt will be a little thicker than her dress, so its shadow is going to be slightly different. And then on that same layer, we're going to pick a lighter color gray. That's too light, a little bit darker. And we'll use this to add highlights. Wherever you draw with this lighter color gray on this overlay layer, it's going to make a lighter color and it will look like light is shining on her. Remember to keep in mind where the light source is and just apply it logically all over. I think I wanted a little bit lighter on her hair just so it shows up better. But remember, you want gray, no color, just gray on this overlay layer, either light gray or dark gray. And get rid of my little sun drawing. Okay, and that's it. I'm done. I'm going to throw on a little bit of a backdrop just so that she's not standing in front of white nothingness. I'm going to grab a color from my stock photo like before. And then a little trick of the trade is if you give it a little bit of a gradient, it makes it look a little more interesting. And it also helps show the viewer where the light source is coming from. Again, it just kind of reinforces the direction of the light source, which is, it's an unconscious thing whenever you're looking at it. I'm going to smooth it out to a nice smooth gradient. And there you have it. That is character art that I did in under an hour using stock photos and tracing. And you should know, I cannot draw human figures. I can't. I have to either trace things or paint directly on other assets like DAZ figures and things like that. So if I can do this, you can do this. It can take a little bit of time to practice and figure out how to do it efficiently, but you can do this. And now that you have a figure, you can add text around her, you can put your book cover next to her, you can add quotes, do whatever you like. You can add more things around her, like a frame or flowers or whatever else you would like to do. This example that I did here is very simple, but you can get really creative with this. Here's a few other things that I have done using this method, including my own author avatar. So anyway, just have fun with this. It can be a fun thing. Basically, you're making yourself an adult coloring book. And these drawings, they don't replace that really epic kind of character art that you can get from a really skilled artist. But if you don't have the budget for an artist and you know better than to use AI, this will get you through until you're selling enough books to justify really gorgeous character art. So if you give this method a try and you come up with something cool, tag me in it. I want to see what you guys make with this, with your new tracing skills. Okay, bye, love you.